The sky above the colony on Solara Prime was a swirl of soft blues and greens, with two suns casting long, gentle shadows across the forests below. Humanity had arrived here decades ago, drawn by the promise of fertile land and abundant water. Colonists had built their homes among the towering trees and crystal-clear lakes, blending advanced technology with the natural beauty of the planet. It was a peaceful place, where humans thrived and learned to live in harmony with the world around them. Dr. Elias Trent stood on a high balcony of the colony's main research center, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had been studying the local plant life for months, documenting their unusual growth patterns and unique properties. The forest below teemed with life, and Elias felt a deep connection to the planet, as if every leaf and stream had a story to tell. But today, a strange feeling gnawed at the back of his mind, a sense of unease he could not shake. A distant shimmer appeared in the sky, a silver shape moving with impossible speed. At first, Elias thought it was one of the colony's own scouting ships, returning from the outer regions, but as the shape grew closer, his heart sank. It was not a human craft. It was an alien ship, enormous and gleaming with strange symbols etched into its hull. The craft descended toward the colony with terrifying precision, stirring a cold wind that rustled the treetops. Alarms blared through the colony's communication network. Human settlers ran through the streets, grabbing children and supplies, heading for the evacuation ships waiting in orbit. The air was thick with panic, but Elias remained rooted to the balcony. He knew, instinctively, that this was no ordinary invasion. He had read reports of alien species from distant systems, but nothing in human records could prepare anyone for the presence of the warrior queen. The ship touched down in a clearing near the colony center. Its landing caused the ground to tremble, and trees swayed as if bowing to the massive craft. A ramp extended, and a figure emerged. She was tall, regal, and commanding, with shimmering armor that reflected both suns above. Her eyes glowed faintly with a color that made Elias shiver, yet he could not look away. This was the warrior queen, a leader of her people, feared across multiple star systems. The humans who had not yet fled froze in awe and fear. Most of them whispered prayers or begged for mercy, expecting destruction at her hands. But Elias did not move. He stayed on the balcony, observing the queen with calm curiosity rather than fear. His mind raced, considering the possibilities. This was not just a test of courage. It was a chance to understand, to learn, and maybe even to change what was expected. The warrior queen's voice echoed across the clearing, deep and resonant, filling every corner of the colony. "Humans," she said, her tone both commanding and impatient. "You have trespassed in my space. Your colony must belong to me. Leave, or face consequences." Elias took a deep breath. He could feel the weight of her presence, the raw power she radiated, yet he did not step back. "We are settlers," he replied, his voice steady. "We came here to live in peace. We do not seek conflict." The queen's eyes narrowed. No one had ever dared to speak so calmly in her presence. Her warriors, who stood behind her in perfect formation, tensed, ready to strike at any sign of defiance. But Elias did not waver. "You are alone," the queen said, her voice sharper now. "All your people have fled. You are the last human here. You should bow. You should beg." "I am not alone," Elias said quietly, looking up at the towering figure. "I am not alone because I do not act out of fear. I am alone only in body, but not in purpose. I stand for my people, and for what is right." A silence fell. The queen had expected screams or immediate surrender. Instead, she saw a human unmoved by terror, a human who carried himself with dignity and strength. It intrigued her. Few species could resist fear when confronted with her presence. Elias's calm was unusual, almost unnatural to her. She stepped closer, her boots leaving impressions in the soft earth. "Do you think your words mean anything?" she asked. "Do you believe that your courage can protect you against my power?" Elias tilted his head slightly, considering her question. "Power alone does not define strength. Wisdom, patience, and understanding, can shape outcomes even greater than force. You have power, yes, but you do not yet understand us, and I do not yet understand you. Perhaps together we can find another way." The queen laughed softly, a sound like metal ringing in the wind. "Another way? There is only one way in this galaxy. The strong take. The weak obey. That is the law of survival." Elias shook his head. "Perhaps that is true for some, but not for all. Humanity has survived against incredible odds because we can think, adapt, and work together. There is more to strength than dominance." The queen studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes measuring every nuance of his expression. She had faced diplomats, conquerors, and scholars from countless worlds, but none had approached her with such fearless honesty. It was unsettling, yet it sparked something within her, a curiosity she had not felt in centuries. "You are foolish," she said finally, though her voice held a hint of respect. "You are alone. You will not survive here." "Perhaps," Elias replied. "But survival is not always the goal. Sometimes understanding, learning, and doing what is right matter more than survival alone." A sudden movement in the forest drew their attention. A small group of children, no older than 10, emerged from the trees, clutching each other and staring at the queen in fear. Elias moved forward, standing between them and the alien leader. "Do not be afraid," he said softly to the children. "Stay calm. We will be safe if we stay calm." The queen watched, silent. Elias's protective stance and concern for the children were foreign to her. On her worlds, the weak were often left behind. Humans acted differently, and she could not help but notice. For hours, the two stood in tense observation, neither moving aggressively. The queen was used to quick victories, to seeing her enemies bend immediately. But Elias was not her enemy in the traditional sense. He was something else entirely, a being who refused to be defined by fear, who held firm without seeking conflict. As the suns began to set, casting golden light across the forest, Elias led the children to a safe structure he had prepared, designed as a refuge in emergencies. The queen watched, curious about his actions. This human's care for others, even in the face of danger, was remarkable. That evening, the colony was quiet. Ships had left for orbit, taking the remaining settlers with them. Only Elias stayed, alone with the warrior queen's fleet towering over the land. He felt a strange mixture of fear and determination, knowing the night would be long and full of challenges. From her ship, the queen observed him. She had seen countless species cower or flee, but Elias had neither run nor begged. Instead, he had shown resilience, courage, and wisdom. She did not yet trust him, but she was intrigued. There was a spark in humans she had never fully understood before, a spark that went beyond physical strength or weapons. Elias, in turn, studied her. He had spent years reading about alien species, learning their languages, their customs, and their technologies. Yet nothing in books could fully prepare him for the presence of a warrior queen, the weight of command, the intensity of her gaze, the aura of authority she carried effortlessly. Night fell, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Creatures stirred quietly, sensing the tension in the air. Elias sat by a small fire, the warmth comforting against the cool night air, while the queen remained on her ship, watching him from above. Neither slept, both aware that the coming days would test their courage, intelligence, and understanding in ways neither could yet predict. And so, on a quiet planet under twin suns, two beings from vastly different worlds prepared for a meeting that would change the course of their histories. One was a human, guided by wisdom and compassion. The other was a warrior queen, shaped by power and duty. Alone, yet not alone in purpose, Elias Trent would soon show that courage, insight, and understanding could rival the greatest force in the galaxy. The night deepened, stars twinkling above, as the first chapter of their unlikely story began. The morning light spilled across Solara Prime, painting the forests and lakes with a gentle gold. The twin suns rose slowly, and the air hummed with life. Elias Trent had spent the night in careful thought. He had not slept much, for he knew the coming hours would be critical. The warrior queen's presence over the colony weighed heavily. But he did not let fear cloud his mind. Instead, he focused on understanding her, learning her patterns, and seeking ways to bridge the vast gap between their species. The queen remained aboard her ship, towering above the colony like a silent sentinel. She had not moved during the night, watching the human who had dared to stay behind. Her warriors were disciplined and alert, yet they, too, found themselves curious about Elias. Their queen had faced countless opponents, yet none had resisted her authority in the same way. He was small, fragile by appearance, yet strong in ways she did not yet understand. Elias stepped into the clearing near the landing site, carrying a small device he had designed for gathering environmental data. He knew that the queen would observe, and he did not wish to appear threatening. He worked carefully, scanning the air and soil, calibrating his instruments with precise movements. Every action was deliberate, each step measured to show focus and intelligence rather than aggression. The queen descended from her ship, her boots pressing firmly against the ground. She regarded him silently for a moment, her glowing eyes tracking his every movement. "You continue to work," she said finally, her voice calm but carrying its usual authority. "You are alone, yet you act as if nothing threatens you." Elias did not look up immediately. "Fear is not always the proper response," he said. "Understanding comes first. If we act out of fear, we lose clarity. If we act with insight, we gain possibilities." The queen tilted her head, intrigued. Few creatures spoke with such composure in her presence, and fewer still understood the value of patience. She had spent centuries enforcing obedience, and the concept of a being willingly standing without fear was unfamiliar. "Insight does not protect you," she said. "No," Elias admitted. "But it can guide us to solutions that strength alone cannot achieve." Elias Conflum. For hours, Elias moved carefully through the clearing, collecting samples, observing patterns in the soil and air, and recording data. The queen followed at a distance, silent but attentive. Her curiosity grew. This human did not plead, did not attempt to flee. Nor did he react with anger or submission. He simply existed, acting with thought and purpose, demonstrating qualities she rarely saw in other species. As the suns climbed higher, a problem arose. One of the queen's smaller drones, sent to map the surrounding forests, malfunctioned and hovered erratically near the ground. It emitted a soft, high-pitched alarm that irritated the queen. She considered destroying it, but Elias moved swiftly and carefully. Approaching the device with calm hands, he examined the drone, recognizing its technology as advanced but not beyond repair. With careful adjustments, he restored its functions, stabilizing its flight. The drone responded immediately, returning to its assigned patterns. The queen watched, intrigued. "You fixed it," she said, a note of surprise in her voice. "You are unarmed, yet you manipulate what I wield." Elias smiled faintly. "Knowledge is a tool as sharp as any weapon. Understanding how things work allows us to influence outcomes without harming anyone." The queen regarded him silently. His words and actions were unusual. Few had survived, even brief encounters with her species, and none had gained her attention without seeking power. Yet Elias, with no weapons and no fleet, had demonstrated a subtle influence over her technology. She began to see that this human's value was not in strength, but in insight and intellect. Hours passed, and Elias continued his work. He noticed that the queen's warriors remained vigilant, but cautious, observing rather than interfering. Their presence was overwhelming, yet the human remained composed. He approached the queen directly, speaking with respect and careful consideration. "I wish to understand you," Elias said. "Not to challenge you, not to claim anything, I wish to learn why you act as you do, and perhaps we can find a way to avoid conflict. The queen's glowing eyes studied him. Few beings had ever sought to understand her motives, rather than fear her authority. Why do you care? She asked. Most of your kind would flee or fight. You are alone, yet you speak of understanding. What is your purpose? My purpose is to find solutions, Elias replied. To seek peace when possible, to help others survive, and to prove that courage can take many forms. Survival is not always in strength alone. Sometimes it is in wisdom, in compassion, and in action guided by knowledge. The queen remained silent for a long moment. His words were foreign, but they resonated with something deep within her. She had spent millennia following the law of power, conquering worlds, and expecting obedience. Yet here was a being who demonstrated strength in an entirely different way. Strength of mind, clarity of thought, and courage of principle. You speak as if you have thought of everything, she said, finally. And yet, you have no protection. You are weak by all standards of survival. Elias considered her words. Perhaps, he said, but strength is measured differently in different ways. Physical power is one measure, but influence, intellect, and determination are others. Sometimes, the smallest being can shape outcomes far greater than any army. The queen studied him longer than usual. She found herself uncomfortably intrigued. Humans were unpredictable, in a way that fascinated her. Their minds worked differently from any species she had conquered or studied. Elias, with his calm composure and insightful words, represented a type of strength that she could not easily dominate or dismiss. As the day wore on, Elias noticed a problem in the Queen's ship systems, a minor malfunction in the navigation interface that could become a serious issue during space travel. The Queen's warriors had not detected it, and she had not acted upon it yet. With careful precision, Elias approached the controls, analyzing the systems. He worked quietly, adjusting settings and recalibrating components. The ship hummed in response, its systems stabilizing. The Queen observed in astonishment. You touch my ship and change its function, she said. Do you understand the risk? Yes, Elias replied. But sometimes, action guided by knowledge is safer than inaction guided by caution. I do not seek to harm, only to improve and prevent failure. The Queen's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. His reasoning was strange, yet effective. He had acted not out of fear, not out of ambition, but from understanding and purpose. She realized that the human strength was not in resisting her physically, but in perceiving solutions she had not considered. By evening, the colony clearing was quiet. The humans who had fled were gone, leaving only Elias and the Queen. She descended closer to observe him, walking among the trees in a way that suggested curiosity rather than dominance. Her warriors remained on the edges, tense yet respectful. You are unlike any human I have encountered, the Queen said. You are small, yet you shape outcomes. You are alone, yet you act with confidence and care. Tell me, why do you remain here when all others have fled? Elias looked up at her, his eyes steady and calm. Because I believe that one being can make a difference. I believe that fear alone should not dictate actions. I believe that understanding and compassion can achieve what force alone cannot. I remain because I can, and because it is needed. The Queen studied him, realizing that he truly meant what he said. She had expected weakness, submission, or cunning ambition. But Elias demonstrated none of these. His courage was quiet, steady, and deliberate. It was a quality that she had rarely encountered, and one that intrigued her deeply. Your reasoning is unusual, she said finally. Most would not think as you do. Most would run, or beg, or resist with force. You do none of these. I act as I must, Elias said. Because action without thought is reckless, and inaction without courage is cowardice. I will do what is right, even if I am alone. For a moment, the Queen was silent. She began to understand that this human was not merely surviving. He was shaping the situation with intellect and purpose. His actions and words had subtly influenced her perception of humans, and she found herself reconsidering assumptions she had held for centuries. As night fell, Elias gathered the equipment he had used and prepared to return to the refuge he had built. The queen followed him silently, her glowing eyes tracking his movements. She was learning, observing, and, perhaps, beginning to respect the human's choices. The stars shone brightly above, reflecting off the calm waters of the lakes. Elias paused to watch them, contemplating the vastness of space and the possibilities that lay ahead. He knew that the coming days would test him in ways he could not yet predict, but he felt prepared. His knowledge, his courage, and his careful understanding of others were tools he would use to navigate challenges. The queen remained above, silently considering the human who had stayed behind when all others fled. She had seen courage, wisdom, and empathy displayed in ways she had not anticipated. This encounter, she realized, was more than a test of strength. It was an opportunity to see the potential of a species she had underestimated, to witness the power of insight and compassion. As the night deepened, both human and alien rested in their own ways, each aware that the next day would bring new trials, new discoveries, and the beginning of a relationship neither fully understood. One was a human who stood alone, guided by intelligence and principle. The other was a warrior queen, commanding and powerful, slowly learning that strength could take forms beyond brute force. In that quiet clearing on a distant planet, the first threads of understanding began to weave between two very different beings. Each would learn from the other. Each would be challenged, and each would discover that the true measure of power was not in domination, but in wisdom, courage, and the willingness to act with purpose. The next morning, Solara Prime awoke under the gentle light of its twin suns. Birds and small creatures moved through the forests, and the wind carried the scent of fresh water and earth. The colony remained empty, its settlers having fled to the orbiting evacuation ships, leaving Elias Trent alone with the towering presence of the warrior queen. Yet Elias did not feel abandoned. He felt a responsibility, not only for himself but for the possibility of change. He had discovered long ago that even one individual could influence outcomes beyond expectation. The queen observed him from her ship, descending closer than usual. Her glowing eyes scanned his calm demeanor as he carefully measured the water quality from a nearby stream. Each movement Elias made was deliberate, reflecting thought and precision rather than haste or panic. The queen, though immense and powerful, found herself studying him with genuine curiosity. She had always ruled through strength, and the concept of influence through intelligence was foreign to her. "You continue your work," she said, her voice resonating across the clearing. "Do you not fear what may come? Your people have left. You are alone. Yet you act as if nothing threatens you." Elias looked up calmly. "I am aware of the risks," he replied, "but understanding and preparation reduce the need for fear." Fear, Cloud's thought. Clarity and patience allow us to find solutions that force alone cannot achieve. The queen did not respond immediately. Her thoughts were occupied with distant matters. The communications from her scouts had detected a rival alien faction approaching the sector, one that sought to challenge her control over the region. This faction was known for its ruthless efficiency and cunning strategy. They were not like humans. They thrived on intimidation and conquest. Her initial plan had been simple: claim the colony and move on. But now, with Elias present, her perspective shifted. Perhaps there was another way to face this threat. Elias noticed her change in expression. He had learned to read subtle cues from other species during his studies, and the queen's hesitation was evident. He approached her cautiously, maintaining a respectful distance. "You face a threat," he said quietly. "One that may challenge your entire fleet. You could survive by strength alone. But perhaps there is a solution that does not rely solely on battle." The queen's eyes narrowed, intrigued. Few beings had ever suggested alternatives to direct action when she faced an enemy. "And what do you propose, human?" she asked. Elias held up a small tablet device. "I have studied your ships, your navigation systems, and your fleet patterns. With careful planning and strategy, we can outmaneuver the rival faction without unnecessary conflict. I can help you organize your fleet for maximum efficiency, using tactics humans have refined for centuries. It is not force alone, but knowledge that can secure victory. The Queen studied him closely. Trust did not come easily to her, and she had never worked alongside a human before. Yet his calm reasoning, combined with his clear understanding of technology and strategy, impressed her. "You ask for my trust," she said. "And yet, you are human. A species I have seen as fragile and inconsistent. Why should I accept your counsel?" "Because I offer insight, not obedience," Elias replied. "I am not asking for power over you. I am offering knowledge and ideas to prevent loss. Your people are valuable, and I do not wish to see them harmed. Working together increases the chance of survival for everyone." The Queen considered this. In her long life, few beings had ever spoken with such clarity and purpose. Most feared her or sought advantage, but Elias had neither fear nor ambition. His intent was simple: to find a solution that minimized harm while achieving a goal. That was rare. "Very well," she said finally, "I will allow you to assist. But know this, if your advice fails, it will be your fault alone." Elias nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "I accept responsibility," he said. "But I will act with care and precision, guided by observation and reason." Over the next several hours, Elias examined the Queen's fleet and the surrounding area. He noted patterns in the ship's formations, weaknesses in navigation routines, and opportunities to create advantages without conflict. The Queen watched silently, allowing him to work. Though she remained alert to any signs of deception, Elias suggested minor adjustments to flight paths, communication protocols, and sensor calibrations. Each change was subtle but effective, increasing the efficiency of the fleet and reducing the chance of confusion during engagement. The Queen's warriors followed his instructions reluctantly at first, but as they saw the improvements, they adjusted with confidence. By midday, the distant sensors detected the rival faction approaching. Their ships appeared on the horizon, sleek and fast, moving with precision and coordination. The Queen's fleet was ready, organized according to Elias's strategy. She observed him, realizing that his human insight had transformed her readiness from reactive to proactive. "You have done well," she said, her tone almost approving. "Your understanding has improved my fleet's performance. But will it be enough?" Elias did not waver. "It is not about strength alone," he said. "It is about knowing your own capabilities and the enemy's, then acting wisely. Confidence, coordination, and clarity can achieve what raw power cannot." The rival faction entered the sector, and their sensors detected the Queen's fleet. They were cautious at first, unsure of the numbers and strategies they faced. The Queen's forces moved according to Elias's plan, maintaining tight formation and precise communication. The rival ships adjusted their approach, testing for weaknesses, but found none. Elias guided the Queen's actions from a safe distance, offering advice on positioning and timing. Each suggestion was met with careful observation, then action. Slowly, the rival faction began to recognize that this was not an ordinary confrontation. The Queen's fleet, strengthened by Elias's insight, moved with purpose and intelligence rather than sheer force. Hours passed, and the tension remained high. The rival faction attempted to probe weaknesses, but every maneuver was anticipated. The Queen's confidence grew, not from fear or aggression, but from observing Elias's calm guidance and the disciplined execution of her fleet. She began to understand the value of collaboration, of combining her power with the insight of another species. During a brief pause in the conflict, the Queen spoke to Elias privately. "You have changed my view," she said. "I have ruled for centuries with strength as the ultimate measure. Yet your strategy has shown me another way, a way to secure survival without unnecessary destruction." Elias nodded. "Power alone can achieve many things, but wisdom and cooperation can achieve more. Even the smallest contribution can shift outcomes." You have the strength to lead, and humans have the insight to guide. Together, we can accomplish what neither could do alone." The queen considered his words, reflecting on her long life of conquest and authority. She had respected strength above all else, yet here was a human demonstrating that intelligence, patience, and courage could influence events far beyond what sheer force could achieve. As the suns began to set, the rival faction retreated, recognizing the superior organization and anticipation of the queen's fleet. Elias's guidance had minimized conflict and avoided unnecessary escalation. The queen's forces remained intact, their systems functioning efficiently, and the humans' evacuation ships could continue without interference. The queen descended to the clearing where Elias had been working. She regarded him, a mixture of respect and curiosity in her glowing eyes. "You have done well," she said. "I had expected only fear or resistance. Yet you have shown courage, intelligence, and understanding. You have improved my fleet and preserved my people without battle. This is unlike anything I have seen before." Elias smiled faintly. "I am glad to help. Strength is valuable, but clarity, preparation, and cooperation can achieve far more than force alone." For the first time in centuries, the queen felt something unfamiliar: gratitude, tempered with respect. She looked at Elias not as a subordinate, a subject, or an enemy, but as a partner in understanding and strategy. "You are remarkable, human," she said. "Few could have done what you have accomplished today." Elias's response was simple. "We are capable of more than we often realize. Sometimes, all it takes is courage and willingness to act wisely, even when we stand alone." The queen nodded, considering the implications of his words. She had conquered worlds and defeated opponents through strength, yet she had never encountered a species whose power came from insight, adaptability, and courage expressed in ways other than force. Elias had demonstrated that humans could be far more than fragile creatures. They could be partners, thinkers, and catalysts for change. Night fell, and the stars shimmered over Solara Prime. Elias returned to his refuge, exhausted but satisfied. The queen remained in her ship, contemplating the events of the day. She had learned something significant. Humans, though seemingly small, could achieve remarkable outcomes when guided by wisdom and courage. Elias had proven that one individual could shape events in ways even the most powerful leaders might not anticipate. The alliance between intellect and strength, between human ingenuity and alien power, had begun. The queen realized that this encounter was only the beginning. If she chose to follow Elias's guidance, her people could face future threats with intelligence and foresight, rather than fear and aggression. She had witnessed the value of cooperation, and she could not ignore it. As the night deepened, both beings prepared for what lay ahead. Elias, guided by careful thought and principle, would continue to advise and support. The queen, open to learning, would test her own assumptions and adapt her strategies. Together, they had forged a path that promised understanding, respect, and hope for the future. In the quiet clearing under the twin suns, an unlikely partnership had begun. The human had demonstrated that courage and insight could rival strength, and the warrior queen had learned that even the most powerful beings could benefit from wisdom and cooperation. The galaxy, vast and uncertain, now held the promise of change, guided by the actions of one determined human and a queen willing to see beyond domination. The morning light on Solara Prime was soft and golden, reflecting on the calm waters of the lakes and the tall, green trees of the forests. Elias Trent stood near the edge of the clearing, observing the queen's fleet as it moved in smooth, precise formations. Unlike before, when the fleet had seemed intimidating and alien, it now carried a sense of order and confidence, guided by strategy rather than fear. The queen descended to meet him, her glowing eyes reflecting curiosity and respect. "The preparations are complete," she said. "The rival faction has been monitored, and they approach cautiously. I will follow your guidance today, human. Do you believe we are ready?" Elias nodded, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Yes. The fleet is organized efficiently. Their movements are predictable, and your forces are coordinated. With careful observation and timely decisions, we can avoid unnecessary conflict and achieve our goals." The queen considered his words. She had faced countless threats over centuries, relying on power and intimidation to ensure victory. But today was different. Today, she had learned that intelligence, planning, and collaboration could achieve what force alone never could. "Very well," she said. "Then we will proceed according to your plan." As the suns rose higher, the rival faction ships appeared on the horizon. They were sleek and fast, moving with precision, testing the defenses of the Queen's fleet. But instead of panic or aggression, the Queen's forces moved with confidence, responding to Elias's guidance. Each adjustment he suggested was subtle yet effective, anticipating the rivals' maneuvers and neutralizing potential challenges before they could escalate. The Queen observed silently, impressed by the humans' calm control and insight. She realized that Elias had done more than organize her fleet. He had changed the way she thought. Strength and authority were important, yes, but foresight, patience, and cooperation were equally powerful. She began to see that this human's courage and intelligence were as valuable as any warrior or weapon. As the rival faction approached closer, Elias identified the best course of action. "We do not need to fight," he said. "We only need to demonstrate our coordination and capability. If they see that your fleet operates with precision and intelligence, they will reconsider their approach." The Queen considered this carefully. It was a tactic she had rarely used, showing strength without engaging in battle. But she trusted Elias's judgment. "Very well," she said. "We will act, but without aggression." Elias guided the Queen's fleet to move in synchronized patterns, demonstrating precision, efficiency, and readiness. The rival faction watched, observing the coordination and intelligence of the Queen's forces. They probed lightly at first, testing for weaknesses, but found none. Every maneuver was anticipated, every movement calculated. And the rival commanders realized that attempting direct confrontation would be unwise. The Queen's eyes glowed with satisfaction. She had expected to rely on power and intimidation, but now she saw a new approach. One that relied on clarity, strategy, and the subtle influence of a single human. Elias's guidance had allowed her to face a threat without unnecessary risk, preserving her forces while demonstrating strength in a way she had never considered before. After several hours of careful demonstration, the rival faction withdrew, recognizing that the Queen's fleet was prepared and organized beyond expectation. Elias smiled faintly, knowing that his strategy had worked. No ships had been harmed, no lives endangered, and the Queen's authority remained unchallenged. The Queen descended from her ship, approaching Elias with a new expression. There was respect in her glowing eyes, and a hint of admiration. "You have changed my perspective," she said. "I had relied on strength for centuries, yet your strategy has shown me that intelligence, patience, and cooperation can be just as powerful. You have saved many lives today, including those of my people, without a single act of aggression." Elias inclined his head humbly. "We can achieve more when we work with understanding rather than fear. Strength is valuable, but wisdom and preparation can accomplish greater outcomes. Even the smallest contribution, if applied thoughtfully, can shape the future." The Queen studied him silently, then spoke with a tone she had rarely used, one of sincere gratitude. "You have given me insight beyond what I have known. You have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and compassion. I offer you any reward you desire. Ask, and it will be yours." Elias shook his head gently. "I do not seek material reward. What I ask is far simpler. I ask for peace, understanding, and cooperation between our species. Let us build a future where humans and your people can work together, not through fear, but through respect and shared knowledge." The Queen considered this carefully. Her life had been spent conquering, commanding, and ensuring obedience. Yet she saw truth in Elias's words. Cooperation offered benefits beyond what she had ever imagined. She nodded slowly. "Very well," she said. "Peace and cooperation will be established. I will honor your request." Over the next days, the Queen and Elias worked closely together. She allowed him to help organize her fleet, improve communication protocols, and train some of her commanders in collaborative strategies. The humans in orbit returned to observe, amazed at the transformation in the Queen's approach. What had begun as an encounter with fear and uncertainty had blossomed into mutual respect and partnership. The alliance between humanity and the Queen's people began to take shape. Colonists were invited to share knowledge, technology, and ideas, building a relationship based on trust and understanding rather than dominance. The Queen's people, once feared across systems, began to see the value of cooperation, patience, and insight. Elias continued to guide and advise, not as a subordinate, but as a partner. He demonstrated how humans approached problems, how they used intelligence, communication, and observation to solve challenges that brute force could not. The Queen, in turn, shared insights into her people's technology and strategy, creating a learning exchange that benefited both civilizations. As weeks passed, the initial tension faded, replaced by a productive collaboration. The rival faction, recognizing the strength of the newly formed alliance, chose to avoid conflict, acknowledging that the combination of intelligence and power could not be easily challenged. Peace, for the first time in decades, became a visible reality in the sector. Elias often reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had stayed when others fled, trusting in courage, principle, and knowledge. His willingness to remain, to act wisely rather than react out of fear, had changed the fate of an entire planet and the perception of humanity across the stars. One individual's choices had influenced not only a powerful queen but also the future of two civilizations. The Queen herself grew to respect and value Elias in ways she had never expected. She had learned that strength alone was not the ultimate measure of leadership. Insight, courage, patience, and the ability to act with principle could achieve outcomes far greater than force. Elias had shown her that humans possessed qualities that even the most formidable species could not ignore. One evening, as the twin suns set in a blaze of gold and orange, Elias and the Queen stood side by side, overlooking the forests of Solara Prime. The waters reflected the light, calm and serene, mirroring the peace that had been established. The Queen turned to him, her glowing eyes soft with understanding. "You have changed more than my fleet," she said. "You have changed my way of thinking. I see now that leadership is not only about power. It is about wisdom, compassion, and courage expressed in ways beyond what I had imagined. You have shown me the strength of your species, human." Elias smiled gently. "And you have shown me the value of listening, learning, and respecting others, even when they are different. Together, we can achieve more than any of us could alone." The stars began to shine in the darkening sky, and a sense of hope filled the air. Solara Prime, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a symbol of cooperation and understanding. Humanity's presence, once seen as fragile and inconsequential, had demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and principle could shape outcomes across the galaxy. As night fell completely, the Queen's fleet settled into formation, systems operating with efficiency and precision. The human colonists returned to the planet, greeted not with fear, but with respect and welcome. A new chapter had begun for both species, one where insight, collaboration, and courage were as important as power. Elias Trent, the human who had chosen to stay when all others fled, walked through the forests of Solara Prime, reflecting on the journey. He had acted with principle, guided by knowledge and wisdom, and in doing so, had forged a lasting alliance. One human, standing firm in courage and understanding, had inspired a powerful queen to see beyond fear and domination. In the quiet forests, under the twin suns and the twinkling stars, a message had been sent across the galaxy. Humanity, though small, was capable of remarkable influence, not through violence or fear, but through intellect, courage, and compassion. The story of one determined human and a warrior queen willing to learn would be remembered as the beginning of a new era, an era where understanding, cooperation, and mutual respect could shape the fate of worlds. Elias paused by a shimmering lake, watching the reflection of the stars on its surface. He thought of the future, full of possibilities and challenges, and he felt a quiet confidence. Humanity had proven its value, not through conquest, but through courage and wisdom. The Queen had learned that strength alone was not enough. Together, they had created a foundation for lasting peace and collaboration, and so, the galaxy held its breath, witnessing the dawn of a new age. One human, guided by knowledge and principle, had changed the heart of a warrior queen. Together, they had proven that courage and understanding could rival any power. One act of wisdom, one choice to stay when all others fled, had shaped the fate of civilizations. The story of Solara Prime would be remembered for generations. It would be told not as a tale of battle, but as a story of intellect, courage, and partnership. Humanity had shown that even in a universe filled with immense power and unknown threats, the mind, the heart, and the will to act wisely could change the course of history. And under the twin suns and the stars above, peace settled over the forests and lakes, carrying with it the promise of a brighter future for all.